Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Game Day with Heavy Cardboard, where we teach, play, and discuss medium and heavy strategy board games, war games, 18xx, and today is going to be something a little special. Well, first off, it's Friday, which means CCMF. Choo-choo, must be Friday.
Must be.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So welcome everybody live around the world as well as after the fact. Like I said, today's going to be something a little bit different. Normally, of late, we've been trying to live stream in 18xx. Well, as you guys can see over my right shoulder over here, we have the Golden Elephant Award of 2016, and that is 1822. So, because this live stream is going to be so long tomorrow, we decided we're going to break the teach off, be by itself, and then just live stream getting started tomorrow in the series of 3 sessions, all right? So I'm going to be your host, Edward, as you guys know. Always Edward, yeah, doesn't change.
I'm Engineer Mike today.
Right, and our teacher today.
Tony.
All right, Elephant Emeritus, right? All right, so cool. So thanks everybody for joining us, like I said, for the teach today. In the show notes down below are going to be all of the links for the 3 scheduled sessions for tomorrow. We're going to take a half-hour lunch break in the middle between first and second session. Then we're going to have afternoon tea and biscuits for the second break, and then we'll come back and finish everything up there. So if you're watching this, this is just the teach. That's it. Come back tomorrow for the live stream for the actual game. If you want to understand what's going on in that game and you're new to 1822, might behoove you to watch this. Last thing I'll say before we turn this over to Tony, we are not going to teach this. If you are not familiar at all with an 18xx, this probably is not going to be your first 18xx game. Ergo, we're going to make assumptions that you understand the basic premise of how an 18xx works, and we're just going to teach 1822 today. All right? So, I lied. There is one more thing. I kind of just wanted to show off the Golden Elephant Award right there. So, Heavy Cardboard presents the Golden Elephant Award, Best Heavy Board Game of 2016, 1822, Railways of Great Britain, designed by Simon Cutforth. So this is waiting to be delivered to Simon. He wasn't at Essen last year, hoping he's going to be at UK Games Expo this year, so we can finally present it to him. All right? So cool.
And the publisher?
All Aboard Games, Scott Peterson, who hopefully will be at HeavyCon here shortly. So, without further ado, Tony, take it away. We're going to keep the cameras up here in the corner since we're not going to actually have anything, but we are not going to have the chat up the entire stream for this, so you guys feel free to chat amongst yourselves. We'll monitor it as we go, but other than that, Tony, tag, you're it.
1822 is a complicated game to teach, so I have my 10-page script here, so you'll be watching me go through my pages here. But I think what I've done here, guys, is planned out a sensible approach to how to teach things in this game. So let's just go through, and like Edward said, we're going to talk about 1822 and how to play it, and with the understanding of we already know how to play 18xx games with the generally accepted concepts and traditions, right?
Right.
So, all right, well, as you can imagine, 1822 is a game of rail network building, you don't say.
Craziness.
Company management, personal investments, and the wealthiest player is going to be the winner. And we are investors and operators of railroad companies in 1800s Britain. So one of my favorite locales for train games,
Hence
actually.
the tea and biscuit break in the afternoon.
I think a good place to start will be some of the general Maguffins of 1822. And I think there's 2 that are important to call out first.
And Maguffins being the peculiarities of this title?
Exactly. Thanks to Alfred Hitchcock for coining that phrase. But yeah, the plot twists, is what he referred to them as in his movies. And that's definitely, we have a couple of plot twists that are worth mentioning here. There's some other Maguffins that we're going to come across, but these are the key Maguffins, right? So number 1 is auctions, auctions, auctions. Okay, Marsha, Marsha, Marsha.
Right, seriously.
So every stock round for much of the game, we're all going to have an opportunity to bid on three things: small private companies, a little bit bigger minor companies, and our traditional major companies. All right, those major companies they're going to start the game by, they're really concessions. So we'll be buying the exclusive right to start that company. Okay, so more about that. And then the other major MacGuffin is company acquisition, and that means in this game that minor companies can be acquired by major companies. All right, so that's a very, very cool thing. All right, it's sideways. So the number 4.
That's just for you, I. All right, keep going.
Let's let's go ahead and jump into the types of companies that are in 1822. The first thing to mention, there are 10 major railroads that will enter the game as concessions, right? So we'll flip these to the concession side, please. These companies enter the game as railroad concessions through the auction at the first portion of the game. And as I mentioned, that each concession that you own gives you, the player, the exclusive right to start that company, i.e. fingerprint it, right? That you can only start that company because you have purchased the concession. They come into the game 3 at a time. And the rest of them come in a randomized but known order, right? So that's
randomized before the game starts.
Yes.
Right.
And so all of us have the right to examine the order in which those companies will enter the game, right? So it's just a variability factor, not a random factor necessarily. The one exception to that is the LNWR, the black company over there. That's always one of the first concessions available for sale, okay? So, Edward, do you want to show a concession and charter?
All right, so here we go. So here, this is just kind of a blown up version of what the different auction areas look like. So we have a concession, which would normally go on top of that, but you can see obviously it's scaled, and we have the actual charter for the major here.
Yeah. So yeah, the concession, it's kind of like a private company in the fact that you'll notice it pays $10 revenue. So if you look at the bidding track, you'll notice you'll be bidding at least $100 for that concession, but you will be getting £10 every turn. So,
right.
And if you flip that concession over, you'll see when you convert that to a major company, it becomes the president's share.
Which is pretty standard across almost every 18XX.
Yeah. And then on the charter there, you'll see that your company is going to start with a home token and a destination token, and then one spare token that you can place anywhere like normal. And then at the far side there are 3 what's called exchange tokens. And we'll talk more about all the tokens and the charter details later. But those exchange tokens are very critical, and they're part of the acquisition of miners, for example. So, very neat. And then, the next thing, there are 24 minor 2-share companies that come into the game. They come into the game 4 at a time in a pre-game randomized but known order. So
right.
we all have the right to examine the order in which those companies come into the game, which is quite critical to know, actually. Number 24 is always going to be the number 1 minor company available in the game. And let's see. So let's see. You want to show the shares and the certificates for those guys?
All right. So minor, again, it also has a track around it there, and it also starts at 100, just like the majors do.
Mm-hmm. And it's 2 shares. It's a 2-share certificate. So remember that later on, because that's going to be something we'll come back to.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things about these minor companies just off the bat are during Phase 1 and Phase 2, they capitalize differently than they do in Phase 3 and onward. So in Phase 1, the capitalization of minor companies is a little different. In Phase 2, it's a little different. In Phase 3, for the rest of the game, it's even a little more different. And we're going to get into those differences and everything. But just illustrating that right now is like these minor companies come to life much differently than the majors in this game.
Right, and especially throughout the evolution of the game itself.
Mm-hmm. And in this game, minor companies don't close, right? So if you don't acquire them, they can operate for the entire game. But you have to be aware of some of the possible shortfalls of that. For example, it is, they only have one token, right? So that's going to limit their route running ability. They only ever get one tile action, and they can only go up to green tiles.
So they can't even lay brown and gray.
Yeah,
Right.
so they have limitations there. And then they can only run 2 trains, and then halfway through the game they can only run 1 train. So, but on the plus side, it is a 2-share certificate, right? So we'll talk more about why that's important. But it, in general, it's 2 shares on 1 certificate, right? So that's
saves your paper.
right. So I've seen minor companies have a permanent train and run and be profitable and last the whole game, but generally that's not the case. So cool. So then let's go to the private companies. How about that?
All right, cool.
So there's 18 private companies that are going to come into the game, 3 at a time, in a randomized before the game but known order that we all have the right to examine the order. The Butterly Engineering Company, Butterly, is always available in the first auction. Yeah, so bidding on these guys starts at 0. You want to show some stuff over there?
All right. So the private, the difference, unlike the minors and the majors, doesn't start at 100, starts at 0, works our way around. And one thing we should note when we get to auctions, I'm sure Tony will point this out, just because it's maxed at 95 or 195, you can bid more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so these little private companies, as you would imagine, they don't do any operations on the board. They just pay revenue, and then they give a company the benefits of its special powers.
Right.
You can give privates to your majors and your minors without compensation, though. And if you flip those back over for a second, you'll notice they're color-coded. And so that matters. Like the pink ones can only be given to majors. The green ones can be given to minors or majors. The blue one, there's only one blue one. He's special. He's weird. Can't give him to anybody. And also, what's noted on there is what phase you can give the private to the major or the minor, depending. Phase 2, for instance. In many 18xx games, it's like, oh, when phase 3 starts, you can start to buy private companies and stuff like that. Well, this one, they go differently. So the Butterly that starts, that can't be brought into a company until phase 5, for example. So a little bit of difference on the private companies there. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, Edward showed you the backsides of those things. When you bring a company into the company, when you bring the private into a major or a minor company, you flip it over because it becomes either, in that case, a permanent 2-train, which is pretty sweet, or it indicates what the power for the company is and whether or not it continues to pay revenue to the company. All right?
Cool.
All
right.
So I think the next thing to maybe talk about is a quick overview of rounds and phases. All
Let's
right?
do it.
1822 has 7 phases, and and we're going to play an undeterminate number of rounds.
Right.
Okay. And
which is usually the case
yes,
in an
yes.
18xx.
And
Usually.
we're going to alternate between a stock round and 1 or 2 operating rounds, depending on the phase that we're in. Okay. So during phase 1, which is where the game starts, we'll have 1 OR. And then during phase 2, for the rest of the game, we'll have 2 ORs, okay?
Yep, 2 ORs, stock round, 2 ORs, stock round, etc.
Cool. So let's just throw out a couple of highlights from the phases, okay?
Cool.
Phase 1, mentioned that's where the game starts. Minor companies can only lay 1 yellow tile, right? And we'll only have minor companies in the game in phase 1. Mm-hmm. And those minor companies are not yet allowed to buy trains from other companies, okay? In phase 2, which starts when someone buys a 2-train or converts an L train into a 2-train, and we'll talk about how that happens.
Okay, we'll wait.
When phase 2 starts, things start to get a little more interesting. Your concessions can be converted into major companies. And basically, as we showed, you flip it over, and we'll talk about this in more detail in a bit, but you flip it over, the company becomes operational, you get a little bit of capital in the company, and people can begin to invest in the company. And they're incrementally capitalized companies, okay? So every time you sell a share from your treasury, the player's money goes into your company to fund its operations.
Sure.
Cool. Minor and major companies that are operational can still only lay one yellow tile, though. And now, also, operational major companies could begin to acquire minor companies. All right, so more about that to come.
This is really handy dandy, by the way.
I got that on BGG. It's an amazing aid.
We'll link to it in the actual gameplay.
It's
Okay.
very nice. It's
All
very
right.
nice. Phase 3 starts when a 3 train is purchased. Hey, green is now available. Green tiles. That's always a good thing. Your L trains will rust immediately. And companies are allowed to start buying trains from other companies. Minimum price is $1. Or, excuse me, £1.
£1.
Sterling.
Right. Oh, by the way, we were corrected. I kept saying British pound or British pound sterling,
Yeah.
and they were like, no, just pound sterling.
Pound sterling.
You can drop the British.
Okay.
My
right
bad.
on, right on.
My bad.
Very cool. Minor companies, they can still lay their one tile, but yellow or green now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what they have for the rest of the game. But now major companies here's a reason you'd want a major company. I can lay two yellows. Or do one upgrade.
Exactly.
And that's how they run for the rest of the game. So the color of the upgrade just depends on what you're upgrading, right?
Right.
As the other colors come available. Cool. So phase 4 starts when the 4 train happens, and those 2 trains go bye-bye. So probably be some bad moments maybe for some people there.
A little whiny,
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah,
Playing
some
better.
loans,
Right.
Yeah, sounds good. Phase 5 starts when the first 5 train is bought, and by the way, the 5 train is the first permanent train. Okay?
There we go. Yep.
All right, so brown tiles are available. Here's an important point. And we're going to cover this a couple more times, your unconverted concessions that you have purchased are now liquidated for no compensation. Okay.
Remove from play.
So if you buy a concession, you probably want to start that company before someone buys a 5 train.
By probably, you mean you better.
Unless you just bought that to keep it out of somebody else's hands because you're rich and flaunting your money.
That's some serious hate drafting
That's
there.
some serious hate drafting right there. But you can always claim you did that, right? Yeah. I just didn't want Edward to have it. Yes.
All right.
So now this also triggers a slight change in the way major companies get started because heretofore, do you like that word?
Yes.
Heretofore, major companies float and become operational with just the presidency. Now it requires 50% of their shares to be sold.
Exactly. So there's the difference right there, as you guys can see when the 5's bought.
And it is still incremental capitalization. So all of the shares that are sold put the money into the company, right? All right. Also, and we'll talk about this again as we go on, but at this point, major companies can also acquire minor companies directly from the bidding boxes, okay? Which is an interesting and sometimes useful mechanic. Okay, we'll talk about that. Let's see, phase 6. Obviously, that starts when, you guessed it, the 6 train gets bought.
Weird.
There are some games where it's like phase 1 is with the 2 trains.
Right,
I always think that's weird,
Right.
The 3 trains go away.
That was sarcasm. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
3 trains go away. And then there's one final change in the way major companies are funded. So you still require 50% sold to float a major company. However, you get full capitalization at that point. So basically, money's on sale for half off. So for $500 of capital, you can control $1,000 of capital.
Right, because you double the amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rest of the shares go to the bank pool.
And the rest of the shares go in the bank pool. Yeah, we'll talk about all that. Last phase of the game is phase 7. That starts when either a 7 train is bought or an E train because they're available simultaneously. And that makes gray tiles available, and your trusty 4 trains go to the scrap heap. All right? Cool. Questions on the phases?
None here, and I don't see any in chat, so let's keep moving.
Cool. All right. Quick stock round overview.
Okay.
And then we're going to drill into the actions
Let's
that
do
you can
it.
do in a stock round. So before the stock round...
I hear Tone Loc in the background. Go ahead. Let's do it.
Before the stock round starts, there is a little housekeeping we have to do because I mentioned there's a point in the game where we can buy miners directly from the bidding boxes. So if that happens, we need to refill before the stock round
I
starts.
support this. Yes.
Yes. all
Get
right.
kudos
So
on proper
we'll just-
pronunciation.
Thank you. We'll slide those down and fill them in. Right.
Right.
So that won't be an issue till maybe later in the game.
Okay.
Also, at the end of the stock round, the player order for the next stock round is determined by cash, so it's descending value. So most money, you first.
Right.
Least money, you last.
And there's also a reason. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're
excited.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, keep going.
See and also I just want to mention this, that stock rounds, especially in the first, say, third of the game, when there's a lot of auctions going on, they can be long. Okay, so just prepare yourself, think in advance, see what other players are doing, and kind of know what you're interested in.
Right.
All right. Cool. So let's drill into a few other things here. So you have optional actions you can take in the stock round. Okay. Number one, you can sell any stock certificates that you want, that you own. But you have to do that at the beginning of your turn, of your stock round turn, before you do your other actions. Okay. And then also, if you wish to pay off some of your loan debt, if you have some, you have that opportunity to pay off loan debt as well. Okay. And then you would get into your main actions. So your main actions are buying one share of a company, that's currently
Pretty
available,
standard,
right? Convert a concession into a major company.
So in other words, start a major.
At least
right?
between rounds, between phases 2 and 4 anyway,
Right.
right? Or inclusive, by the way. Or you can place or increase one bid that you have. And you notice that in a 4-player game, we all have 5-player bidding tokens, right?
Right.
So the way you place a bid is you just put it somewhere on the track for the thing you want to bid with. Now, we do play a variant where you can place up to 3
In one action.
in
right.
one action, because the general consensus is it does speed up the game with minimum harm.
Right.
So that's how we'll be playing tomorrow as well.
Yep.
Yep, Jared, good job.
There you go.
That's exactly how we play it, buddy.
Exactly.
And I think that this is a good time to talk about certificate limit in this game.
Sure.
Because we're about to talk about buying shares and stuff and acquiring minor companies. So all of your certificates, right? Not your charters and things. So essentially everything that is a certificate-sized piece of paper
There you go.
counts against your certificate limit, with one exception, that blue private company. He
The
doesn't.
oddball.
He doesn't count against your certificate limit.
Correct.
So.
The offshore tax haven.
Yes.
Yeah. He is an oddball in a number of ways, but he is unique and cool. And in a 4-player game, the certificate limit's 20. So
20
which
pieces of paper.
which I think is nice and generous. It'll be tight later in the game. And the yellow zone on the stock market. So if there's a company whose shares are in the yellow zone, its certificates don't count against your paper limit. Okay.
But as soon as it pops out,
Then
They do.
you have to make right if you're over the limit.
There you go.
Yeah. So cool. All right. So selling stock, right? You can never sell stock in a company that has not yet operated. Okay. So if you buy it this round, it's a new company. You're sitting on it till next round. Okay. The bank pool, 50% max, right? Pretty typical. And also, as is typical, when you sell shares, you get the high value, right? So if the shares are valued at $80 and I sell 2 of them, I get 160.
right.
But then the stock will drop 1 space for every share sold in this game. Okay. Cool. So then buying stock. Here's an important note: you cannot buy stock if you have a loan balance. Okay.
Well, yeah, the bank gets theirs first, right?
Yeah, that is
There you
correct. You can't buy stock if you've already sold it that round, right? It's pretty
Pretty
typical
standard,
stuff. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
yep.
yeah. And here's an interesting twist here is you cannot buy stock in a major company if you already possess 60% or more of that company, okay? So I can purchase shares as long as I don't cross 60%. But there is a mechanism in the game where I can own more than 60%. I can even own 100% of a company if I am
If you timed it
potentially
right.
fortunate,
yes,
right?
Yes,
you know?
yes.
But 60% is the purchasing limit.
All right,
is
so
the way
say
I
that
like to-
one more time.
Yeah.
Drive that point
Sure,
home because
sure.
I feel like this is a really important thing.
Yeah, in a lot of games, it's a strict limit, right? Like I can't own more than 60%.
Doesn't matter
or-
how
right.
or what.
In this game, I can own more than 60%, but I can never buy a certificate if I already have 60% or more of that company.
Got it.
All right? Cool.
Except for the tax haven.
No.
The tax haven, well, he's a weird guy.
Right,
We'll,
yeah,
we'll talk
okay,
about
yeah.
him.
He's just a weird guy.
But this is a great. This would be fine. So the tax haven, that's that blue company.
So
right?
here, I'll
Yeah.
remind folks here.
Yeah, so when you buy him, you get this other little charter. And so not only does the blue not count against your certificate limit, but you can buy a share of any company you want and put it on that white charter, okay? And that certificate does not count against your certificate limit. So it's kind of like you're getting you could have 21.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
That's
Instead
how
of
you
20.
can break that rule without a company being in
Right.
the yellow, right?
But it is offshore, right? So this private company, I'll just talk about it real quick. This private company has some limitations, right? So that share is always there. It does count as sold for the company. And all the dividends that are paid to it just stack up on that. So at the end of the game, you count the dividends and its value into your portfolio.
But
you
it hasn't helped you during
But you
the
can
game.
never liquidate the position or
Exactly.
use that
Yep.
money, okay?
Yep.
So
Cool.
it's, yeah.
All right. So that would be the oddball
Yeah.
nature of that. All
You
right.
can even buy that share even when you're at 60%
Yes.
already.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because it's really not yours. It's going offshore into your Swiss account or your Cayman Islands.
Cayman
account.
Islands, I think. Yeah.
Mine will be in the
Snorkeling.
Caymans.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Cool. So let's talk about the bidding. Okay. So if you have a loan balance, guess what? You can't
You
bid
can
on
bid,
anything.
right.
Right. So all right, a common theme there. And you also can't bid on anything if you're at your certificate limit because you're buying a certificate, right? Whatever it is, it's going to count against your limit unless it's that blue one. So that'll keep you out of some bids if you're at your paper limit there. The on your turn, you're either going to put a bidding token that you've not used onto a certificate that you haven't got a bid on yet,
Right.
or you can increase the bid on something where you've been outbid. But you can never just simply increase your own winning bid, and you can never move a token to another track. So of these,
So bid smartly, in other words.
yes, of these 10 things that are up for bid, I can bid on 5 of them at most. Okay, I may not want to bid on 5 things.
And one thing I want to interject here real quick is it's really easy sometimes in this game to get fascinated at all the candy that's out here. Oh, all the pretty special, and forget about buying shares. It's really easy to forget, oh yeah, we're in a stock round. I can buy shares. Oh, but I want to bid on all these cool
Yeah.
actions. Don't forget about the shares.
Generally, if they're my companies, I don't mind if you forget.
Yeah.
I want to buy them or leave them there.
Right.
Cool. So the last thing about the bidding is that you cannot bid over your cash, right? So
Sure.
if I got $100, my bids can't be more than $100, right?
Combined total.
Combined
Yes.
total. Of course, I could sell some stuff to get me some more cash or something, right? But only then can I bid higher.
You have to have the cash on hand in which to
make a bid.
Right.
Let's talk about converting the railroad concession into a major company, okay?
Okay.
So, hey, if you got a loan balance, you can't do that. Okay.
I'm noticing the theme here.
Yes. And then what you're going to do is, when you do that, you're going to determine the initial value of the company. And majors can go between 60 and 100. This $50 spot is only for minors. Okay.
So minors only at 50.
At first, minors will only hit 50, but yeah, we'll get into those
Cool.
capitalization
Cool.
details here in a bit. So you'll pick between 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100 pounds sterling to as your initial share price, okay? And then you're going to flip over the concession to be your directorship, and then something's going to happen as a result of you owning that concession, right? So the game is going to help capitalize your company. For all companies except for the London and Northwestern, which we'll talk about in 1 second, it works the same. And then the LNWR has a slightly different twist to how this works, okay? So you get $100 from the bank, and you put it in the company treasury, and then you will pay the balance from your personal cash, the balance of the difference, right, of $100 versus your directorship's cost. So if I start a company at $70, then my directorship is worth $140, correct?
Correct, because it's 2 shares.
Right. The game gives me $100 as my benefit for having bought a concession from Parliament,
Regardless of how much you paid for it.
regardless of how much I paid for it.
Right.
And then, so I owe $40 of my own cash into the company treasury.
Above and beyond what you paid for it to make up the difference for the shares.
paid for the concession.
You're for the yeah. Right.
But I paid for that, hopefully not
Understood.
too long ago.
Understood. Yeah.
All right. So if I start a company at 100, the game gives me 100. I owe it 100. Okay. The LNWR works just slightly different, and he's got a bunch of strange rules that we'll go into as we progress here. But one of them is that his presidency is a 10%. His directorship is a 10%. It's not a 20. All right. And so the way that he works is when you flip it over, you name your value of the company, and the bank is going to put that value into the company for you.
Well,
okay.
Because you don't have to make it a difference for a second share. Right.
Right. So if you start the company at 100, the game gives you $100 for the company.
Move on.
You started at 60, the game gives you 60.
Sure.
All right. And everywhere in between.
Easy enough.
Cool. You look like you had a question?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, cool.
Just plain Vanna. That's all.
So before phase 5 begins, the only way to start a major is to convert that concession, right? And remember, that's only allowed from phase 2 through phase 4. So in phase 2, 3, and 4, you can convert a concession.
Right.
Because before phase 2, you can't convert them. After phase 4, you don't have any concessions.
They don't exist anymore. Right. Yeah.
All right. Forfeited without compensation. All right. Cool. So let's see. Capitalization of the major companies, right? So here, let's just drill in on that a little bit. For most of the game, right, it's going to be the incremental capitalization, and the directorship will float the company, right? So, hey, if all you can afford is the presidency, and you don't think anybody's going to take that company from you, because this is mainly a run good companies game, not a let me rape and dump this company. So be careful if you start a company with only 2 shares. Look at everybody's holdings, and their cash. But that's all you need to start a company, okay, at the beginning of the game. And so, and your shares are in your treasury, so, not only will they pay dividends, but they will capitalize the company as players buy them, right?
And there's no par price, right?
Right, everything's at market value.
Right. Obviously, there's a par price when you start, but I'm saying as things get bought, it's current value, right?
And then, again, from phase 5 onwards, there's still incremental cap, but 50% sold to float the company and make it operational. And then from phase 6 onwards, it's 50% to make it operational, and 100% capitalization. Again, money's on sale for half off. Okay? And then you won't place your home token onto the map until your first OR. Okay, so some games you put a token on when you float, some games you don't. This is one you don't. Okay.
Can you unpack that a little as to why that would matter?
Yes, because a token that's on the board at the beginning of the OR blocks routes, right?
So in other words, if something operates before your company that hasn't operated yet, they could still go through your home.
Correct.
And it's not being blocked out.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right, end of the stock round. There's a, as you said, unpack. There's a few things to unpack at the end of a stock round here, okay? So first of all, what we're going to do is decide the operating order of the minor companies that were purchased at auction, okay?
Right.
And work on their capitalization. So let's talk about their capitalization first, okay?
Okay.
During phase 1, okay, all minor companies are going to have a $50 price and $100 in the treasury, no matter what you paid for them.
Right.
Okay, so if you made me pay $180 for the Worthington and Newton Railway,
Yep.
it's still a $50 starting value
And $100
and $100 in the treasury. Okay. In phase 2, it's a little bit different, where it's your starting value is going to be half of the amount bid, rounded down to the number on the track there, and then twice that number in the starting capital as the starting capital of the company.
You want to give an example? Because
Sure.
numbers are one thing.
Sure.
Actually having it.
Let's say I
unpacked.
bid 150.
You bid 150.
That means my starting price is 70.
Because rounded down, it's got to be in the par
Right. There's
price
not a 75
area.
in there.
Correct.
And I'll get $140 in the treasury.
Roger that.
All right. And then from phase 3 through the rest of the game, basically, your bid is your starting value is again going to be half your bid value, rounded down, but all of the money in the treasury that you bid. So if I bid $300 for a minor later in the game, my starting value is 100, and I get $300.
And 100 because that's the highest
That's
it can
that's
be.
the highest it can
but you
start at.
get everything that you bid. So
Right.
maybe you want to, get a permanent 5 in there right away.
It does happen.
And throw 500 on the bid.
It does happen.
So even though, like I said, it can get up to some really big numbers.
Interesting.
Okay.
Cool. So let's see. So then the minor price tokens, and this is something we have to do before we start taking all the things we bid on, right?
Yes.
Because when you win an auction, it's like, oh, give me my stuff, right?
Right.
Well, slow the hole down there, because like on the minor companies, we have to get their tokens on the board, okay? Because they're going to start in the order of the bid value, right? So. In bid order, right? Descending bid order. So that one I bid $300 on, I'm probably operating first unless somebody else bid on something
Right.
higher than that, right?
So as it is in this example, 8 would go first, then 7, then 5,
Correct.
based on the bid amounts.
And if there was a tie, those bid boxes are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. So number 1 would go before 2, number 3, number 4,
Cool.
etc. Okay. Cool. So then, for each minor company that there was no bid placed on,
Mm-hmm. So in this instance,
we're going to remove an L train or a local train from the deck. So if no one, for example, yes, in this case, Edward says there's one that wasn't bid on. So one of these L trains goes out of the game, right? There's 22 of them,
right.
okay? And we want them gone, and they will be gone, and we'll be buying a lot of them. So that one of those will leave the game, okay? Important fact. And then, in addition to that, if company number 1 was not purchased,
Regardless of what number actual company it is.
yeah, the company
anything
in the number 1
first
box.
Right.
If that was not purchased, then an additional train will go off the stack.
Regardless.
Right.
of
Here's
what it
here's the
is.
difference. That first thing when we're getting rid of L trains, that only kills L trains. But through the whole course of the game, every time bidding box number 1 isn't emptied, a train will be removed, whether it's a 3 train, a 4 train, it doesn't matter, right?
Oh my.
And that can cause a phase change too. Mm-hmm. Okay, so cool. So then, if the company number 1, if it wasn't bid on in bidding box number 1, it's actually removed from the game. Okay, and its home token is no longer
you're
reserved.
saying, right, yeah.
So number 24, we'd like just tear it up and throw it back in the box. Well, maybe
It's not my copy.
Maybe we
that's
won't
fine.
tear it up.
No worries.
But then this number 24 location here is no longer reserved, so anybody can put a token there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Everything else that's wasn't sold remains. We'll just slide those things down. We will refill,
Refill.
etc.
Right.
And then let's see if a major company is sold out, 100% player hands, we will raise its price up on the stock market. If you're ledged at the top, you'll actually just come down diagonally, which means you won't actually have a value gain, but you'll at least have that opportunity next time if you're still
move
sold
up.
out.
Yeah.
So a little delayed gratification.
Yeah, I haven't seen another game do that, to where you actually move to the right and down, kind of, diagonal, I'm saying, to give you the ability.
There's a few.
Are there? Okay. All right, cool.
Not many. Usually you're ledged.
Right, yeah.
Yes, Murr, that is correct. That is an interesting...
To where Murr says that could end up, set up an interesting choice to where, you know what, I might want the minor, but more importantly, I want whatever train that is to rust to be able to help me because maybe I'm going to operate in a certain order. So it's another layer of decision that you got to take into account.
Can be manipulated.
Yes.
Also, if you have a loan and you didn't feel the need to pay any of it back or couldn't pay any of it back, the Bank of England gives you a 50% interest added right to your principal there. So it's very friendly loan terms there. And then at the end of the stock round, we're going to determine that player order again in descending cash. Loans have no impact on the cash.
And last interruption here from the Peanut Gallery. Nick says, "Oh, or the opposite. I better bid on this, or my trains might rust." So something.
I better manufacture $100.
Right.
All right. Cool. So since we just talked about loans, let's talk about loans.
Oh,
All right. Because this game doesn't have bankruptcy.
Say that again.
This game does not have bankruptcy.
Does not. You may want it to.
This has loans, and my personal feeling is small loans are not a big deal.
No, they actually.
Yeah.
I have used them to good effect
Okay.
actually in the past.
But if a big loan, like if you really get caught with your trains down, you're going to want to be bankrupt. Maybe.
Right, because
You know?
you should be watching
But,
TV.
but I encourage
Right.
you just to play your best regardless and be a good trooper.
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. So loans are only going to happen in an emergency train buying situation when the director has liquidated positions and generated cash and still doesn't have enough cash to buy a train for one or more of his companies. Yeah, seen that happen. So, and again, that's instead of going bankrupt. What happens here is in an emergency train buying situations, right? You're going to be able to sell stock, right? If you still don't have enough cash, you have to take out a loan for the difference, right? First thing the game's going to do is say, oh, here's your, let's say, $200 loan, and you're 50% interest. So now I automatically owe $300 back to the game, okay? Remember, I can pay that off, in the stock rounds and stuff. So, so yes, and a loan is an immediate debt of 50% more of what you took out. So.
I've had $10 loans before.
And remember, I said at the end of the stock round, you're getting 50% added on to whatever you still may owe, right? So gross. Technically, you can pay loan balance from your cash at any time you want. There's really no real need to do it unless you're in the stock rounds, So cool. So good to go there. Did
right.
Martin Wallace? Yes. Loans joke. All right, let's cover the rolling stock because we talked about L trains and stuff like that.
Rolling stock, i.e. choo-choos.
Yeah. So we have L trains that are on double-sided cards. It's an L side on it's an L on one
bring
side
them over
and two on another.
There we go.
The L trains are local trains, and here's how they work. They serve as one token and up to one doink. So essentially they're a 1+1 train.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
Okay, because
That
they
makes
can
sense.
serve one token
Yep.
and 0 to 1 doinks, right?
Right.
Like if all you have is your home city,
That's
that train
okay.
can serve it.
That's a legit legal route.
Only for the L train.
The L train.
Yeah.
Having a station.
Exactly. Okay, and any type of company can own and operate an L train, even your majors. Okay. So then, if you flip there's the 2. So the 2 train there is, and the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 7 they all function the same, right? They count cities and doinks. You got to have at least one token. You need 2 stops. You can start and stop at the doinks, right? All the typical stuff, right? And L trains and 2 trains are simultaneously available. And you'll notice here, we'll touch on it here, and we'll touch on it in the operating round. But the L trains cost $60. But that red text, Edward, if you'd read that red text on the L train,
80 pounds sterling upgrade from an L or to a 2. Either
from
way.
an L to a 2.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm saying depending on which side you're going to read it. It's
Exactly.
$80 to flip it over from an
Yeah.
L to a 2.
So if you got $120, you can buy a 2 train. But if you got $60, you can buy an L train, and then $80 later, you can turn it into a 2 train.
Right.
Okay.
So it costs you a 20 pound sterling
Yeah.
premium, but it might, that's half as much.
Yeah.
Especially when a miner only starts with a share price of
Of 50.
50.
Let's talk about there's a 2P train that is one of those privates, and the 2Ps are really cool. They come into the game as a private company. There's 2 of them in the game, and they're a 2P permanent. They're a permanent 2 train, which is a neat little concept.
Right.
Only a major company can have a 2P, okay?
And just as a reminder, and we'll show this,
Yep.
especially during the play.
And we're going to talk about it again when we get
All right.
to the ops.
So you'll notice, again, handy dandy little player aid, private company acquisition, major only. This is pink. Well, it can only be acquired by a major. Cool.
Yep. So only a major, a company, you can only have one, and you can never sell that train to other companies. So once you put that private into that major, that guy owns that train for the rest of the game. Okay. It also does not count as having a train,
However,
and it does not count against your train limit. Those things are important.
Right, yeah.
But here's the however.
Yeah.
Here's what's really cool about the permanent 2 train. The revenue from the route that the 2P runs can be treated separately, if you wish, from your other train's revenue. So if I had 2 trains, I could, the one single 2 train I would handle its revenue as I normally would, right? Like pay dividends or withhold it, etc.
Right.
But that 2P train, I could do something completely different with that. I could just withhold it. I could pay revenues for it, or I can just add it to my other train's revenue and pay, so I get to do all these different things. So it's a nice way without penalty to put a little money in the company if you're desperate, right? Because I can run my trains and pay out and maybe move up on the stock market track, but then I can run my 2 train and just hoard that money without moving backwards on the stock track, okay? So it's kind of a neat little train.
And the 2P does not count against having a train, does it?
That's what I meant. That's what
Right.
I said. It does not count as having a train, and it does not count against your train limit.
Meaning, just because you have a 2P doesn't mean you don't have to buy a train.
You still got to buy a train.
Right.
Right. And as we'll talk, every company requires a train in this game.
Yes.
End of statement. There's no like,
All
if I have a
conditions.
route, no.
No.
No, you got to have a train.
Do you have a company? Yes.
You
You need
gotta
a
have a
train.
train.
There
Are
we
you
go.
a train company?
Are you a train company? Another kind of rolling stock that'll come out in the game is a Pullman. It'll come out as a private company. And there's 2 of these guys. Is there 2? I think there's only 1 actually. Nope, there is
there are
2.
2.
Yeah, there are 2.
All right. So hold on. I need the Pullman.
It's I handed you a 2.
You did.
I apologize. good
It's
sir.
all right.
I'm doing a lousy job of Vanna Whiting here.
Right? Leave it to Vanna's.
Yes.
There. All right. All right. So
So-
here we go. So real quick. Private company acquisition. A minor or a major could acquire the Pullman because it's green. Notice, right? So when acquired, becomes a Pullman.
Yep. You bind a Pullman, you couple a Pullman, to use the train terminology. Yeah. You couple a Pullman with a normal train, a 2P, a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. You don't couple them with E trains. We'll talk about E trains. And basically, they make the doinks unlimited and free. Okay, so remember that you can start and stop at doinks. So a 3 train with a Pullman can concentrate on 3 cities, and the Pullman can sweep up all the
And
doinks.
suck up all the doinks, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So it's very cool. Again, it does not count as owning a train because it's not a train. It's a fancy people car, and it cannot be sold between companies either. Okay, doesn't count against the train limit, etc. All right. Cool. So operating round. Let's dive in. At the beginning of the operating round, we're going to pay the privates, right? Some of these private companies, when they're acquired by majors, actually won't pay revenue anymore, but that'll be obvious as we get to that.
Actually, here we go. Operating round. Okay.
Cool. And then, so one thing to note here, just because I think it's interesting, and because we're not really going to deep dive into privates very much, is private number 9 and private number 15 both have interesting Maguffins on their revenue, okay? So just something to keep in mind as we go there. As the game progresses, their revenues can go higher, okay? Cool. And then all of the minor companies are going to do their operations in descending order, and then all of the major companies are going to do their operations in descending order, okay?
Correct.
So all minors are going to run first, all majors are going to run second. All right. So there's some first turn housekeeping. And there's some really neat stuff in the first turn housekeeping in 1822. First of all, so first turn housekeeping is, this is my first OR. I just floated, I just became operational, right? So you're going to place a token on your home city. In general, it costs no money, but there is minor number 14. We'll talk about him. He costs money to place his home token, right? It costs 20 pounds, in fact, to place his home token. He's got some other special rules about his first turn housekeeping where his token actually counts as this track laying, so it's a little bit weird, but we'll get into more of that as we go. And he's going to go ahead and put his token onto a very special place. London.
So
London.
real quick, to let you guys know what you're looking at here to show you. So basically, we've taken this part of the map right here and blown it up to where we can talk about a whole bunch of different stuff. This has most everything that the entire map has condensed all into one part of the map, so it makes it easier for y'all to see.
Yeah. So you can see the black roundel there, that's London. And then the green one over here on the right is kind of, think of it as an overlay to London, okay? Because what happens is minor number 14 can place his home token for £20 sterling in any one of those places, right? And that does count as his track lay, as I mentioned. And basically what that means is that token is co-located in London. So in this case, where Edward placed it, 14 and 15 both have our token there.
Or it could be at the LNWR if it's due north. So both the LNWR would have a station there, and the 14 would also have a station there.
Yep. Cool. So the LNWR, speaking of that fantastic company,
I thought it was a good segue myself.
he's got a little bit of difference in his first turn housekeeping. He actually gets his home token placed in London as normal, but then his destination token is also placed on the map over here in Manchester. All right, so he'll have 2 tokens on the board to start, and he can build track from both of them. You run trains and stuff like that. So everybody else only gets 1 token to start with.
But that's another of the special of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
single
He's got some fun
share
quirks. He's got some fun
presidency.
quirks.
Right, yeah.
And now here's the coolest part, maybe, about first turn housekeeping. If you're a minor company, you can right now buy an L train, which
At the
means
very beginning of
Yes.
your turn.
which means you can run it and make money right now,
Right now.
right
Yeah,
now.
buddy.
right? So
And why wouldn't you?
exactly.
Money's good.
The only reason you might not want to is later in the game, as you can get more than $100 in the company. Maybe you don't want the L train because you want the 2 train or the 3 train or
Right, or the 5.
Yeah. So
Right,
of course,
yeah.
by then the L's are dead. So
Right.
cool. All right. So that's first turn housekeeping. So then you can, step 1, acquire 1 or more private companies from a willing player. Yes, Mike, I can give you my private companies.
Unlikely.
No, Mike, I shall not do that. Okay.
Really?
Yes.
Tease.
Yes, indeed. There's no restriction to the number that you can take into your company, right? You just have to pay attention to the phase they can be accepted and the color coding, so the right kind of company they go into. And then you flip them over, right, because they may or may not pay revenue, blah, blah, blah. And remember, you don't get any compensation. This is not a loot your company.
Right, and to remind everybody, the moment a company gets this, it flips over,
Flip it over,
correct?
yep.
Immediately. So boom,
Yep.
there it is. Okay.
See, that one
All
still
right.
pays revenue.
Right.
Some of them don't have the revenue on the other
So
side.
meaning, ergo, they
Meaning
do
all
not-
they give you is a special ability.
Exactly, right.
Let's see. Yep, we talked about blue cannot be acquired. We talked about red can only go to majors, and greens can go to majors and minors, right?
Yep.
So we're good. Step 2, lay track. Again, minors, 1 tile action. And it's yellow or green if green's available.
And something I want to point out to everybody here is this is one of the handful of games where all the track is smaller than your normal size because the hexes are smaller because
Yeah.
it's a bigger map and to make it more reasonable. So these are definitely smaller size track tiles. Okay? All right?
We'll have to get Chad to make one of his giant size games of this.
I need
yeah.
a room
Yeah.
just for this table or
HeavyCon.
just for that, right? Yeah.
We have rooms at HeavyCon.
Look
Right.
like the World War II war room with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
little
Yeah,
croupier
people-
sticks.
I like this guy. I don't care what Amanda says. Minors, right? We talked about 1 tile action, right? So again, you can never use brown or gray.
Right.
Majors, phase 1, you get 1 yellow. Phase 2, you get 1 tile action. So it could be an upgrade or a yellow. And then in phase 3, we're talking 2 yellows or 1 upgrade. Okay.
Right.
So a little bit different than a lot of games.
For a major.
For a major, yeah. This game has a lot of these offshore arrows on the map that just kind of go
Oh,
off
yeah,
into
they're,
nowhere.
They're all over
Yeah.
the place.
They're just there to make track laying a little easier. So like, because normally you can't lay track against a dead end.
Right, or often, yeah, like
board
this,
edge.
like right here.
Right. But having these there allows you to lay a piece of track that way, just so that you can not have to have so many variations of track tiles printed in the game, really, right?
Right.
So it has no effect on the game, just like less stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Let's see. The plain yellow tiles aren't limited, right? So that's good. There are some difficult terrain things to look at in the game here. So Edward's going to show you that map segment here again. So you'll see there are some hills and some marshes. London, if you'll notice inside of there, has got a 20-pound symbol in the center of the black thing there. So if you're going to upgrade London, it costs 20 pounds. So London starts the game
With that,
valued at 20, and then if you want to pay 20 to upgrade it, its yellow is worth 40, its green is worth 60,
And
et cetera, et cetera.
that's how it goes from
Yeah.
there. Okay. So London can be extremely lucrative.
It can, and then there's also, you see the red line. Obviously, that means you can't-
Impassable,
Yeah,
right?
impassable. But the estuaries, those blue guys that cost $40, they work a little bit differently in this game than a lot of hex side terrain works. Sometimes in a game, the hex side terrain is you only pay it when you connect it.
Right. So if this were laid, you wouldn't have to pay it. It's whoever would
Yeah.
lay that one would have to pay it.
In this game, it's essentially 80 pounds because.
This one's paying it, and this one's paying it.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
That is correct. So that works a little bit differently than that. Cool. That's about that, right? So once you've laid some track, you want to check to see that you have a connection to your destination from your home.
So you were talking about.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and look at that map too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Here, and actually, I want to bring this over
There you
so
go.
folks can. There we go. We'll do it like so. There we go.
So if you look on that map,
Oh yeah.
the
Right.
the
Seeker.
Lobisker and the Seeker
So Libisker here.
Yeah.
So home,
and
destination.
Yeah.
Seeker, home, destination.
Yeah. So if you have a legal route, okay, so yes, you can be tokened out of your destination connection, right? So if you have a legal route to your destination, you get to place your destination station on that location.
And the destination, remember, it looks like this. It also has the black bar on it. However, Tony being Tony, in tomorrow's playthrough, we have, so those are the two station markers, but he also made them a little bit taller with the red to kind of highlight them a little bit more, which I think is an awesome idea. All right.
So here's the one cool thing about placing your destination token. Those aren't reserved, right? So like if the location of your destination is completely full of tokens, you can still put your destination there. It's an extra.
Oh.
Yeah. And then if the city grows up, it slides in, so yeah.
So it fills a spot if there's one available. If there's not one available,
It creates
it
a
creates
a
its own.
spot.
Yeah.
Got it.
Cool. Step 3, you can place a station token. And your home and your destination, should those have happened in your first term housekeeping or your track laying, they don't count as your token lay. You can
So
always
you
get
can
another token
get
out.
another, right?
But really, minor companies only have one extra token available at the beginning of the game. And then they have those 3 or 4 if you're the LNWR exchange tokens. And we'll talk about exchange tokens. So, they're $100, so tokens aren't cheap, but if you feel like putting a token out there, you can do that. There is a special rule about London. A company can have multiple tokens in London. Okay? And London's not a through connection either, it's all separate places. Okay. Cool. Your home tokens locations are reserved, so no one can put a token in that Lobisker or spot until the Lobisker puts its token there, right?
Right.
Cool. Let's see. That's about that. Then we're going to run trains. We talked about our rolling stock and how they operate. Since we're on the topic of London, it is legal to have one train serve 2 stations in London.
Because they're not connected, right?
I'm sorry. I'm confusing myself. Read your notes, Tony. Cannot serve London twice. Yes. Read your notes, Tony.
Right?
On the same route.
So you can have 2 tokens in London, but one train can never serve London twice.
So, for instance, he can't come around to here,
Right.
but if he had 2 trains, he could go one here.
yeah, you
one
can have
there.
multiple tokens, but not multiple deliveries
Got it.
with one train.
Roger that.
Can't read my own typing.
Yeah, weird.
Okay. Step 5, handle your revenue. So in this game, for a major company, you're going to either pay a full dividend, retain the earnings, or you can do a split.
50-50,
Yep,
right.
50-50. The company shares pay the company, right? Bank pools pay the bank pool. And of course, shareholders get paid as well. If you keep all of your earnings or you don't have any earnings, you will go backwards on the
As is standard.
as is standard. If you paid a dividend that equals your value, you will move 1 space forward. If you pay a dividend that's twice your value and you're a major company, you'll move 2 spaces forward. Okay, so major companies can quote unquote
Double jump.
double jump, yeah.
But you have to pay your minimum, or to be able to advance.
Yeah.
So if you're in the 50 spot and you pay 40, you spin in place.
You just spin
Yep.
in place, right?
Got it.
You don't move up or back, or forward
right.
or backwards.
All right, cool.
Question regarding the 2 Ps, right? So you can combine, I get the combining revenue.
Right.
And then you can jump or double jump or
Yes.
whatever. So you can withhold your normal trains and pay out the 2P train separately or the other way around. Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, it's weird. But if you withhold the 2 train, that doesn't penalize you as like withholding, right? Only if you withhold your main revenue.
Oh, so if I withhold my main revenue and pay out the 2P,
You're still going backwards.
you're still going backwards.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
All right.
But the other way around is like pay a dividend and then hoard your 2P if you need money.
All
Right.
right.
Unless you need a lot of money. Then you hoard it all.
Right.
All right. Cool. So then the minor companies work a little bit differently on handling their revenue. They always pay 50-50. So the company gets half and you get half, Mr. Owner of the minor company.
Right.
And regardless of the size of that dividend, the minor companies will always move forward, right? So here's the life cycle of a minor company. If I didn't buy an L train, I'm moving backwards on the first OR, right? And then I might move backwards on future ORs if I'm ever caught without a train. But every time I have a train, I'm moving forward.
Right.
Cool.
Because you always pay 50% split dividends. 50% to the company, 50% to whomever owns the share.
Let's see. Yep.
Cool.
Buying rolling stock is step 6. Again, if you're an operational company, you have to have a choo-choo.
That isn't a 2P or a Pullman.
You must have a CC.
Yes.
Yes, that isn't a 2P or a Pullman. You can buy trains. You can also pay to upgrade the L to the 2, as we previously mentioned, if you have an L train. And then beginning in phase 3, so in the green phase, you can buy trains from other companies. Minimum cost is £1 sterling. All right. So cool. Let's see. What else?
And somebody asked, so London's a terminus.
Right?
Yep, it is.
7 termini.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, because of 14.
Oh, I technically
Yeah.
could be, yeah.
London's not a
Technically,
through.
it's 8.
So let's talk about the forced train purchases real quick, right?
Okay.
It's pretty standard. When you're in a forced train purchase situation, if the train you're going to buy is one of the double-sided trains, like a 2 or an L or a 7 or an E, you always have to buy the cheaper. So for example, I can't not buy an L train with my minor company's first turn housekeeping and then force buy a 2 because I'd have to buy the L.
Gotcha.
'Cause
You
it's
have
cheaper.
to buy the cheaper of the
Right.
2. Got it.
Right.
Okay. All right, cool.
And then, the director has to cough up his or her own cash. You got to sell shares to generate cash to the point where you have enough money to buy the train or you don't have anything left to sell. The presidency of the company that's in that situation cannot be affected by the sales, right? So like I can't lose my presidency.
Although, in my opinion, you should if you run it that poorly.
Well, they'll wait till after I get, stripped before taking that from me. So, and then you get the loan, 50%. Yeah, it's fun.
Right.
It's very cool. And then step 7 is acquiring a minor company, a single minor company. So you can only acquire one at a time here.
It does say a minor company right there. Yep.
And so the first thing is let's cover that I said from phase 5 onwards, you can buy one directly from the bidding boxes for $200. Okay. And here's your choice when you buy something from the bidding box. You can, so let's say number 7 here is available, who's right here in this map.
Okay.
And it's late in the game. Okay. It's phase 5 or later, and I want to purchase 7. So I got $200 cash in my company. I buy it. Okay. Now my choice is I can either put my token where number 7 is, one of my exchange tokens. Notice how that came from an exchange token location.
And again,
Yeah.
exchange tokens.
So I can't use those in any other when they're over there, except when I'm acquiring minor companies, right? So I can put one here.
So real quick, if I could back you up real
Yes.
quick. So you say you can outright purchase it
$200.
for 200. So as an action instead of bidding on them.
Correct, because this is during the operating.
This
Got
is
it.
during OR.
Right. If
Yeah.
it's out here, then it's available.
And if that happened, that would cause the refill of those before the stock round that we talked about earlier. Yeah.
Roger that.
Cool. So if I want, I can put an exchange token here, should I have one available. And if I don't want to put a token there, I can move a token from my exchange area to my available. See those empty circles? Yeah. In which case I can place it later where I want to for $100. So it's kind of two things. Either I bought a future token placement for essentially $300, or I bought a token where I might want one for $200.
Right.
Okay? All right. So that's not going to happen a ton, but it does happen, okay?
Right.
So the normal way that miners get acquired is like this. Both of the companies have to have operated one time, okay? So if this is my first OR as a major, I can't acquire anybody. In my second OR, I can acquire somebody. As long as that guy's already been through one OR as well.
Which minors always run before majors.
Dingo, dingo. So later in the game here, we got 2 ORs, right? Well, the first one, I'm not making any acquisitions. The second one, I am. So you want to keep that in your mind as you're playing, because you can only acquire 1 per round. And one of the, I think, charming features of 1822 is it allows you to control your own risk. So the number of minor companies I'm willing to juggle at any one time is an expression of the amount of risk I'm willing to accept in terms of being forced to force buy trains. So since I can only acquire 1 miner at a time, I need to keep in mind that I have to have operated 1 time, so I have to like time my purchases, and hopefully that corresponds with my 4 trains not rotting my 2 trains, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Right.
You have to coordinate the burn down of all those
Yes.
miners to not coincide with a forced purchase.
Yes.
Or,
see.
well, you don't have to, but I would recommend it.
Yes.
So a lot of miners, maybe a higher risk. But I think there's high risk, high reward in this game too. So,
Totally.
You
All
know,
right.
whatever you choose to do is up to you. You must have a route to the token or to the miner that you want to merge with. Okay.
So, for instance, if we have the seeker down here, right? He can't just acquire 4 unless he's connected.
unless there's
right.
choo-choo routes through
Right.
there. Okay.
And-
And this is an important note. The route also extends to when you buy one from the bidding box. You still have to have a route to where you would place that token.
Is it a legal route? Meaning,
Yes.
can you be tokened out and still purchase it?
Legal route,
Okay, meaning tokened out, you can't connect to
no
it.
acquisition.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so you got to have a route, and that matters even if you're buying one from the bidding box. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. The directors must agree. So yes, I can ask you to accept my minor company. Haven't seen it happen.
I suppose it could to avoid a forced train purchase, possibly.
Why would I help you
Yeah,
avoid
if
it?
No, the other way around. Like, you don't want to get stuck with a miner that you're going to be stuck.
But why would you help me?
Yeah, fair point. All right, yeah, fair point. Yeah, I haven't seen it either. I'm just trying to think of
Having
a
the most
situation.
money is relative to the amount of money. So
Right.
yeah, okay. So let's see. So the value of your miner. Remember, these were 2 share certificates for your miner companies, right? And we'll talk like having 2 shares on 1 certificate is great because that's 2 percentages of value on 1 piece of paper towards your paper limit, right?
Sure.
So that's just a side note. So it's a 2 share company. So if my miner is valued at $100, you know, then that company is worth $200,
Right.
right? Because I have 2 shares of it. Okay.
Okay.
So a major company can acquire a minor company for full value, and the payment to the owner of the minor company by the major company can be any combination of cash, 0, 1, or 2 shares from the company treasury. Okay? From the company treasury. So, here's the deal. If my major company is worth $150, okay? So
here we go.
Green
Hold on.
token.
Here, we'll do it. I'm a visual learner,
Sounds
and
good.
I imagine other folks out there are. So okay.
So if my major is worth 150 and my minor is worth something crazy like 270, I just pick some numbers.
Sure.
Here's my options, assuming I have at least 2 shares and some cash in my treasury, right? Option 1, I can give the owner of the minor 2 shares of stock, which is a $300 value. So me I owe $30 of my cash back to the company treasury, right?
All right, so let's work our way through this. So you're giving yourself, the company, the major company's
got 2 shares.
Is
It's giving me 2
you
shares.
2 shares in exchange for the 24.
Right.
So the 24 is worth 270, but the 2 shares are worth 150 apiece for 300.
Right.
So the difference between 270 and 300 is $30. So you owe the company $30
Right.
to make up the difference.
The major.
Got it. There you go.
Option 2 is my major company can give me 1 share and 120 pounds of cash.
It has to have the
But I got to have 120 pounds, right? Or heck, I can just pay $270 for it. Cash from the treasury.
However, what if your company doesn't have the cash and only has 1 share? In this example.
And you're not going to be doing any acquisitions, are you?
All right. Exactly.
But the major point of that is no matter how the math works out, the math has to work out, right? Like everybody must be made whole, the major and the owner of the minor.
Okay. So in other words, the player being the owner of the minor, as well as the company that's acquiring the minor. And I'm reiterating it a different way so that it might stick for some people more so than, one way or the other.
Sounds like a great way to manage getting shares into your portfolio.
Yes, and so this is the only way that you can exceed 60% ownership. Because remember we were talking earlier, that's a purchasing limit of 60%. So if I bought 50%, let's say for this example,
Right.
and then I acquired 2 more shares,
In that example that we
right?
just gave,
I would
now
own
at
70%. So I could never buy any more shares.
However, what if you acquired another minor into it? That's
Then I-
potentially
right,
another
then
2 shares.
Then I can acquire potentially 1 or 2 more shares.
So in a lot of times, ideally, in a perfect world, not to get too deep into
Sure,
strategy, you buy up to 60%, and now you start acquiring minors. You
Right.
acquire 2 minors at 2 shares apiece, you now own 100% of your company.
That's precisely why I said in this example, I have bought 50%, because you notice those 2 shares put me over.
Right.
So I can never spend more money. I couldn't put more money into the company,
Right.
but maybe you guys would.
Exactly.
So, cool. So then again, when you acquire that minor, you replace its token from your exchange token, or you don't want a token there, you slide one into your availables, okay?
Right.
Piece of cake. Step 8 is the last step, and that is you can issue or redeem, but not both, shares from your corporate treasury. So in your first OR of operation, you cannot issue shares, okay? No one's interested in them. So you've proven yourself and own a train, probably.
Right, yeah, that being the more important part.
So you can issue as many shares as you want. You put them in the bank pool, and you will reduce the stock price by 1 for each share that you've issued, and you get the bottom value,
For
unlike
all
when
of
you
them.
sell shares, right? So if we're at 150, and I issued 2 shares, 1, 2, and I would get 120 for each of those 2 shares.
Into the company
Into the
because
company.
the company is what issued the shares.
Yeah. Okay.
And you said as many as you want.
Yes.
Up to 50%.
50% can only be in the pool.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
Fair point.
Just clarifying.
as
Okay.
many as I want might not be as many as I'm allowed.
Yes.
When you redeem shares, you just buy them back from the pool for face value or for current market value.
There you go, right.
So the concept here is when you're emergency train buying, shares in your company aren't worth anything. So you must issue shares the turn before you need the money, if that's the way you choose to get some money in. Okay?
AKA plan better.
Plan better. All right.
In that forced train buy example, is the company that is being forced to buy, is he compelled to sell his own shares, or can he decline and foist it all off on the director?
The company that's being the company can never issue shares in emergency train buying.
Okay.
Right.
just
That's
cannot.
what that concept just was. Right.
Okay.
So it's like in emergency train buy, those shares are useless to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So they can only be sold ahead of emergency train buying.
All right.
Right?
Otherwise, those shares stay
Yeah.
in the company and it's coming out of your portfolio as the director.
Yeah. So if I have shares and I'm looking at emergency train buy in the near future, I want to consider issuing some shares to put some money in the company if that's the chosen way I want to put capital into the company.
it, return
There's
before-
other ways
yeah.
to put capital in, right?
Yep.
Buying shares, or screw it, I got a lot of money and it's not very much, I'll just buy a train, so cool. All right. So the second to last thing to talk about is just a couple of special rules on how the game ends. Okay, so London, right? Every upgrade costs £20 sterling. It's not a through, right? So it's a terminus. It's 6 separate stations. You can have more than one station there. You cannot serve it twice with the same train. You know, a lot of these things we talked about. Miner number 14 starts in London, right? And he's got his first turn housekeeping.
Yep.
That's a bit of a ritual for him. He's got co-location and track rights there. The 6 hexes that surround London are protected for the directors of those concession holders and minor companies and things. So like, you cannot lay track in a London tile
You can't be predatory.
that does not
Include
connect London to the network.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Not saying there won't be predatory. Just these 6.
Just
can't
those
be.
6. Exactly. Exactly. The English Channel tile. Let's talk about that guy.
All right.
Because he's weird and he's cool.
Yeah. This one is really special.
So England and and France, that offboard area, it kind of looks like it's 2 locations. It's 1. Okay.
So this here is this.
it's the revenue
It's
for the
not-
English Channel.
It's not
through
a
France.
separate point, and I know this, and I will still probably screw this up. So if you're counting, for instance, the seeker, if he went 1, 2, 3, 4 into France,
Yep.
it's not 5.
Right.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, good to go.
Good to go.
All right. Cool.
So here's how it works. If the English Channel is tokened out, then only companies with a token there running to the English Channel spot can get France's revenue. The English Channel spot itself has 0 revenue, right? So to collect France's revenue, you either must have a token on the English Channel,
So in other words, here only the GWR
Right.
can service this,
or there has to be an open token spot that you can run.
Everybody can run through it.
Right. All right. The Seeker. The Seeker is has a company with a special ability, and that ability is that it can lay a token in the English Channel for free. All right, so
Okay, it's blown up,
Yeah,
but bear
I
with
blew it
me.
up.
Here we go. Okay.
yeah, so the Seeker can lay in a token in the English Channel for free. Okay?
Obviously, it would have to go yellow to green
to brown.
to brown,
Yeah,
right?
but the brown's got 2 holes, and notice 2 tracks.
And 2-track is why I wanted to point this out. It has 2-track running off board, so as long as one of these tokens is open, everybody can use 2 different trains because it's 2 different track, right?
And take a look at that. That's the green English token child, the brown one there. So every time you upgrade the English token, it's £100, guys. Sheep pricey.
Yep. But it's also potentially worth 120 once we reach
You bet.
in game.
You bet. We talked about the yellow zone, and then just want to do one last word on the private companies because like it would be senseless to talk about each of the private companies. But there's 15 different ones of the 18 because there's some doubles in there. But and I think the best way to probably teach new players is like teach them when they come out
I totally
in the
agree.
game.
Yep.
But talk about what is gonna come out so people have an idea about what's coming, right? Because there's a couple of permanent 2 trains. There's the Pullmans. There's a permanent 5 train that's in the first auction. You know, you can't put it in a company until phase 5, but it's a permanent train,
Yeah.
right? It's a $500 train. How much is that worth at auction? I don't know.
Let that sink in.
Right.
It is a permanent
Right.
train.
There's mail contracts. There's a company that lets you put a free token in the English Channel, right? So that's pretty cool, right?
Yep.
And there's the various run of these help you pay terrain costs.
Sure.
There's one that lets you plow a doink under, right? So which is pretty cool. Like the LNWR really loves to get that, so it can remove that doink in front of London. You know, so they can run cleaner.
I.e.
Hereford.
Yeah. Right. Here, actually, there's a reason we blew this up, right? Here we go. So you can actually plow through this doink and make it just a straight. That way you don't have to count it because doinks suck.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I think it's important that everyone knows what's coming out.
Right.
And you can, again, examine the order that which are coming out because a common theme in 18xx games is to try to invest as much money as you can because if it's in your mattress, it's not earning you dividends or capital gains, right? But But in this game, maybe there are reasons to not invest all your money and save some money from stock round to stock round so that you can bid on the things you might want to bid on, right? So,
And again, I
so
reiterated.
you need to know what's coming.
Correct. I reiterated this earlier. I will do this again tomorrow when we actually play. But all of this, not all of it, but a lot of these can be candy. Do not forget
The
about
shares.
this.
So we get to dig through these piles and know their order right at the beginning of the game.
The
Anytime
whole
you want.
time.
Anytime you
Just
want.
like
Anytime,
Le
yeah.
Havre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll always know. There's no secret information in this
Okay.
game. The only variant, or the only, let me rephrase that, the only variability is the order in which these will come out, and we'll shuffle them up before the game starts, or maybe after we're done today in anticipation for tomorrow. This way, everybody will know what it's going to be for the game, and you can look at it through the game.
There is a private
I
company
was just going to say,
that
yes,
its special power is that you can
pull
take-
something to the front.
or send the front to the back, right?
Right,
So if
yeah.
you think that's important, that's
Right.
cool.
There you go.
All right, so the game's going to end when somebody hits the game end value, which is it 700 in this game?
700 pounds.
700 pound value, or when the bank breaks, right? So we
Right.
have a
12,000?
we have 12,000 pound bank, right? So
Okay.
it's the end of a pair of operating rounds after the bank breaks, or it's the end of the first operating round after the company gets at that high value.
Right.
Okay.
Or if it's a foregone conclusion, we call it.
Yeah, and I think this game is interesting in that sometimes what appears to be a foregone conclusion, unless it's totally lopsided, is not necessarily a foregone conclusion until the E-trains come out. Because E-trains, as we talked about, they only serve tokens, your tokens, and they double all those values, including your destination value, right?
Even if your including your destination token.
Your destination
So
token.
the backside of the sevens.
So
are the
E-trains
E's.
can raise a lot of revenue and cause some double jumps. So,
Right.
And if you got a lot of stock in those companies, that could cause a position to shift.
Totally.
All right.
And there's a reason this is going to be broken up into 3 streams tomorrow.
Yes. All right. So that's the teach. I did want to highlight a couple of designer notes that I thought were interesting.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
So Simon says in his designer notes that,
That
quote
was
unquote,
funny, by the way. Just
Simon says?
Yeah.
Sorry. It was unintentional. It was even unrealized even. His quote-unquote objective was to create a game that did not have a scripted start or combination of the best opening.
which I loathe in 18XX games.
Yeah.
Yes.
He
I
wanted
love that
each
idea.
opening to be different with each outing, right?
And it does.
And he wanted to have a game with the minor companies in it and have flexibility into which minors can go into the majors, right? There are some games where it's like, this minor can go here, right? Like Ardennes, right? There's certain combinations that happen and stuff like that. So, because he feels like this offers an enhancement of his first objective, right? Of the variability. So, and renders ineffective scripted plans as well, right? So, creating good replay potential. And he also had a note about the balance of the companies in the game, right? Like, he wasn't an objective, right? Like, inherently, some companies are going to be better than other companies. And as we'll see in our gameplay, a lot depends on what comes out. Some of these companies work well together naturally, but sometimes that's affected by what current companies are available right now, and that synergy is affected by that variable start, right? And so
Because timing is going to come
right.
into play here. Like, oh, this would work out perfectly if that was available. Well, it would be available maybe in 2 sets of ORs, which maybe that window has passed, and maybe there's a better opportunity somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of that synergy makes the auction things variable, right? Because then something could be worth more to you than it would be to me.
Correct.
And maybe in the next game, that thing is worth nothing to you, right?
Right.
So,
Yep.
So that's pretty much it. I did want to mention there are some scenarios available for this game, right? Because this is a big, long game, okay?
So, okay.
This is why this is a 3-session game, right?
Right.
It's a long game.
It says it plays 3 to 7.
Yeah.
It says
4 to 5 would be great.
right, ideally, but the scenarios, they block off part of the map.
Yeah,
Right.
there's 3 that do the whole map and 3 that use just areas of the map. and they're all available on BGG. There are like overlays that you can print and put onto the map for the different scenarios, and there's like two smalls, 2 mediums, and 2 large scenarios in there. Now, I've not played any of them. I certainly would give it a try, but I think it is a cool way to scale the game, if not just learn the game. Right?
Sure.
Is just play some of those other scenarios with a couple of folks and figure out how things work.
Cool.
Do those scenarios all go 3 to 7, or just restricted number of players?
The scenarios, to my recollection, have suggested player counts. I believe.
Yeah. All right. Awesome.
Questions?
Job, man. I've been watching chat. The only thing that people want is you to blow the whistle. That's it.
Blow the whistle? Oh. So tomorrow, you want to put this over there in your...
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So tomorrow it's going to be a 4-player game, and I'm going to be the game conductor and the AP brakeman.
Right.
So I'm just going to adjudicate the game, right?
Yeah, he's going to GM kind of like what I did for Arkwright.
There you go. And so I brought my train whistle. So if you hear this, that means you're taking too darn long to do your turn. And so you either better hurry up or talk about what is puzzling you so that our viewers can experience that with you and learn.
Right, exactly.
You know, and so that we can all, because like, who cares who wins, right?
Right.
What we want to do is show the coolness of 1822. Right?
And why it won that
Yeah.
thing.
So talk out loud.
Yep.
Think out loud.
Yep,
All right.
totally. It's less about us killing each other and more about I don't
Being
want to say
gentlemanly while
I
doing
don't
so?
want to say evangelizing, but showing off
Yeah.
what the game can be
Well,
about.
Yeah.
So
And just a side note, I said talk out loud. I used to work with this business analyst. That's what he used to say. Instead of think out loud, he'd always say talk out loud. And we'd always like, we always talk out
well,
loud.
inner monologue or not, right?
So half the time I'll say talk out loud instead of think out loud now,
Nice.
just as a result of that.
Good stuff. All right, so Matt asked who's going to be playing tomorrow. So the seating arrangements are probably going to be me here as always. Amanda will be where Mike is. Mike will be where Tony is. Ash is going to be over next to where Tony is, and Tony will be down there at the end, kind of running the stock market and running things. So FYI, when we actually play the game, we're actually going to zoom in a little bit, and this stuff here is going to be, and this is all going to be off board, so that we can blow up the map a little, and also so you guys can see everybody's holdings. Okay? So yeah, awesome. All right. And Amanda says she's going to make you use that whistle at some point.
She may not
No
have
worries.
to.
Yeah, right.
I think that
You're in the game.
All right.
I think that Amanda and I are going to maybe clandestinely team up on you guys.
Possibly a little
I'll be
bit,
neutral.
Yeah, quote unquote. All right. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks, Tony, for taking on the teach. I know this was a big one.
It is.
Yeah, thanks everybody. If you guys liked it, you appreciate the teaching that Tony did and that we did here, like and subscribe. And thanks to the 640 patrons we have, and also thanks to Simon for designing a really cool game, and Scott for publishing it over at All Aboard Games.
Amen.
All right. So take care. We'll see you guys tomorrow for those that want to join us tomorrow. And hopefully we have some diehards that join us for the whole thing.
Wow, that'll be impressive.
I think so. All right. So it should be a good time. Again, I'm Edward.
I'm Engineer Mike.
I'm Tony.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Take care, everybody.